without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in our special guest tonight. Let's welcome in Mr. Paul Knepper. How you doing, my friend?
All right. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, man, I'm super excited about this, man. So the book is officially dropping November 1st, correct?
Yeah, that's right. It's out. It's available. I'm
That's
pretty
fantastic,
excited.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the book is, if you didn't hear something from the start here, it's Moses Malone, The Life of a Basketball Prophet. Paul, man, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about Moses Malone and what was the motivation behind the book?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was I consider myself kind of a basketball historian, and I've written a lot about the game and read a lot about the game. And I didn't know a great deal about Moses Malone. I knew he was a great player. I knew I knew the broad strokes. I didn't know a great deal about him. And so I started to dive in a little bit and was like, wow, this guy's got a great story. And it really starts with in 1974, he was the first modern day player to go straight from high school to pros, which was extremely difficult at that time. And then he went on to become really the best player in basketball. He won 3 MVP awards. He's one of only 9 guys to do that in NBA history. Won 3 or more MVP awards. He was the best player on one of the best teams ever, the 1982-83 76ers. He's by far the greatest offensive rebounder in basketball history. And so, but nobody talks about him. Nobody talks about Moses. And I thought between his incredible career and being a trailblazer as the first to go pro, I just thought there was a lot of great material in there, a great story on him. And I wanted to kind of bring his story to light, particularly for the younger generations who didn't get to see him.
Yeah, and that's exactly, we were talking off camera as well. It's like, I know the name. If you like basketball, you know the name, but did you really know his story? So what is some of the stuff that you found that was interesting that some people may not know about Moses growing up, or just in general? What did you find interesting about Moses?
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love the stuff from his childhood. I love learning about that. Moses was, part of the title is, I call him a basketball prophet. When he was 14 years old, he wrote down on a piece of paper that he was going to be the greatest high school player in the country by the end of his junior year. And he tucked that note into the family Bible. And It was a crazy prediction at the time because he'd only been playing for a few months. He had no skills at all. He lived in a town where there wasn't much talent. There was no reason to ever possibly believe that would happen, but it did. And then at the end of his junior year, when he fulfilled that prophecy, he made another, which was that he was going to be the first player to jump straight from high school to pros. And again, that's inconceivable. It took place just a year later. Nobody was talking about it. He wasn't on like the NBA or ABA's radar at that time. It didn't seem like something that could happen, and then it did. And then the crazy, just some of the best stuff about him was the recruiting wars that went on for him to go to college, and all the things that were promised to him and his family and his friends and his coaches, and some of the stories around that were really crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so as a recap here too, we got Mr. Paul Knepper here. Book is out now. You can find it on Amazon. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Moses Malone, The Life of a Basketball Prophet. We're just going over some of the highlights of it. That was really interesting too about writing out. That's such a cool title that you came up with as well, The Basketball Prophet. Basing it off of that, I would have never known that really. So that's pretty good. So was he one of the stars of the ABA, or was he like the merger into the NBA? How did that whole process go?
Yeah, so he started off in the ABA. The ABA drafted him straight out of high school, and he played 2 years in the ABA. They were rocky years. It was the end of the ABA. The first team he was on was the Utah Stars, and they folded, basically early in the second season. And so he got shipped to St. Louis, and they were drawing like 1,000 people a game. At that point, it was crazy. And then at the end of his second season, the ABA folded. It basically, they merged into the NBA. Four of the teams joined the NBA. But Moses was an all-star in his first season in the ABA. But nobody was really paying attention. The ABA just wasn't getting that kind of attention. They didn't have a television deal. So it was once he came over to the NBA, and that was a weird start. He came over to the Trailblazers. He was with the Trailblazers for training camp. Then they traded him to the Buffalo Braves for a week. And after a week, the Braves traded him to the Houston Rockets. And once he got in Houston, he kind of took off and became, he was still young. It took him a few years to reach his prime, but once he did in the late 70s, he was really the best player in the game, and he won a couple of MVPs in Houston, and then he went and signed with Philly, and that's kind of what he's best known for because he won a championship in Philly, and he's known for the famous line "faux faux faux," where he basically predicted that they wouldn't lose a game in the playoffs, and he was close. They only lost one, but that team was stacked. They had Dr. J and Mo Cheeks and Bobby Jones and Andrew Toney, and that was an all-time great team. So he kind of became best known for that, but his star really ascended in Houston.
So with his game, how Moses played back then, would it translate to the NBA now, or was that style more of like a predominant in that time, or would he still be dominant now, you think?
I think if you took like prime Moses, say 1983, and transported him to today's NBA, I think he would be effective, but I don't think he could dominate the way he did because the game is just so different now. Yeah. And there are just very different skills required of a big man, right? Nobody plays post play anymore. Like they wouldn't just dump the ball inside to him anymore. He wouldn't be able to grab as many offensive rebounds because now you have so many 3-point shots, which lead to longer rebounds. But I think Moses was so talented. He was so athletic and he was so talented and he was so hardworking that I think if he came up now, he would be great because I think he would have worked on and developed the skills that you need as a big man to be great now. He would have learned to shoot the three. He would have become a better ball handler. He would have become a better passer because that's what you need to be great now. That's what you need to get paid now. And so I think that's what he would have done.
So I was reading a little bit up on the bio as well that you had for yourself, actually. So you went to Michigan?
I went to Michigan.
Went to Michigan and studied at Fordham, I guess. So I studied law, though, not sports, right?
I went to law school. Right after college, I practiced law for about 10 years and hated it, and started doing some writing on the side with like a startup website. And then I got a gig writing for Bleacher Report for a couple of years, covering the Knicks for Bleacher Report. And then I just decided to write a couple of books.
Yeah, and the first book was about the '90s Knicks, correct?
Yeah, called The Knicks of the 90s. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was really, I grew up in New York, so that was really the team of my youth. So I loved writing about that and interviewing a lot of my like childhood heroes and telling their story.
Oh, I imagine so, man. That was the heyday of the Knicks as well. So, are you still a diehard Knicks fan now, or?
Oh yeah.
What do you think of the state of the Knicks now? They got a new coach. They're running a new offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going through some growing pains right now. Just trying to kind of figure out this new offense, and guys are trying to figure out what their roles are and how to make it work together. So I think they'll be stronger towards the end of the season because I think they're kind of figuring things out. I'm excited. Look, it's weird. I look at them and I'm like, I don't think they have a championship roster. I look at that roster and I don't. I think they're a very good team. They're not a great team, but in the Eastern Conference, the way it is right now, you might be able to get to the finals with a very good team. So I think they I think they have a legitimate shot at the finals. And who knows, right? If you make it to the finals and I don't know, you're playing against Denver and Jokic gets hurt, or you play in OKC and SGA gets hurt, crazier things have happened. So, I mean, our chances of winning the championship are greater than 0, which I couldn't say for most of the last 25 years.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I want to jump back to the Moses Malone really quick because you said it best. A lot of people don't really talk about him, right? And he has so many accomplishments. He was a great player. He played in a time where there weren't so many great players, so the really great ones really outshined everyone. And in sports, we love to compare generations and all that, and people love to bring up Julius Erving, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and the list goes on and on, but they don't like to bring up Moses Malone. And with you and all the information that you got and all the knowledge that you got in writing the book, why do you think that no one talks about Moses Malone?
Yeah, I gave this a lot of thought, and I talk about it a lot in the preface of the book because I think it's important. It's a great question. I think there are a lot of reasons. I kind of narrow it down to three main ones. One is that there was no flash to Moses. He didn't soar through the air like Dr. J or Michael Jordan. He wasn't a wizard with a ball like Magic. He didn't shoot from 30 feet like Steph. There was no hand gestures, no, three to the head or anything after he made a shot. He was just no flash. So I think like people, Sports Center wasn't leading off highlight shows of Moses Malone rebounding. And I think younger generations of fans aren't pulling up YouTube clips of him the way they might to see Michael dunking or Magic passing, because it just wasn't as flashy. I think another problem is most of those guys, like the guys you mentioned, the guys of his contemporaries, the superstars of his generation, most of those guys played for one team, maybe two teams their whole career, right? Magic only played for the Lakers. Bird only played for the Celtics. Isaiah only played for the Pistons. You mentioned Dr. J. He spent his whole NBA career with the 76ers. For a variety of reasons, Moses played for 9 teams across 2 leagues. And so I think he's loved and admired, like in Houston and Philly. His jerseys retired in both places. He's appreciated there. But as I mentioned, he's best known for Philly. And like the problem is he was only there 4 years. So while he's loved and admired, he's not loved and admired like guys like Dr. J or Allen Iverson, who were there for a decade. And so I think that's part of the problem. And the last thing I would say is Moses didn't give a damn how he was viewed or remembered. That's the biggest thing. He was very gruff with the media. He didn't like doing interviews. He gave you nothing. I always say like Moses played with a scowl on his face. But Michael Jordan played with a scowl on his face. Kobe played with a scowl on his face. And then they'd go to the interview after and they'd sit there and they'd flash that $1 billion smile. And even if it was choreographed and even if they were just trying to get endorsements, they did it, right? Yeah. Moses never did that. And so, back then there was no social media. There was no internet. There wasn't even much cable television for a lot of his career. It was the sports writers who created the mythology around our athletes. And none of the sports writers got to know him. Some of them flat out disliked him. And I think that affected the way he was covered then. I think it affects the way he's even talked about now by many writers. And because he was gruff with the media and he had a bit of a speech impediment, he didn't get the kind of endorsement deals that players of his caliber do. And you get endorsement deals, that puts you in people's television, in people's living rooms in a different way, and it kind of endears you to them and it kind of embeds you in pop culture a little bit. And he never kind of took that step either. So I think all those factors combined have just kind of led to him being somewhat forgotten.
Yeah, it makes sense. Honestly, the way you put it, it just really makes a lot of more sense for sure. Because our generation, we love the flash for sure. We love even the post-game interviews. Like a lot of people want to get, and especially reporters, they want to get the juicy information out of every single player, coach, or front office employee. And they don't just want to get those, black and white answers. No, they want all the gray answers in between.
Right. Yeah. And Moses just didn't. I think it was fascinating, really. He didn't give a damn about fame. He had no interest in being famous at all. And we see guys like that. I mean, I think Jokic is like that now.
Yeah.
Tim Duncan
Kevin
was
Durant
like
a little bit.
Maybe Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, Kawhi. Tim Duncan was like that. He had no interest. I think he thought it was nonsense. He's probably right too. But he just, most guys play the game, even if they're not interested. They play the media game. He didn't play the game.
We got Paul Knepper on here. The book is Moses Malone, A Life of a Basketball Prophet. Do you have any kind of, just in the research you did, I was reading a little bit about it. I think you interviewed about like 250 people or so, somewhere in there. Was there any kind of like funny story that stood out that maybe the people don't get a chance to really talk about or know, or something you found that was just kind of funny, like, wow, that's a good one?
Yeah, I think my favorite story in the book is, oh man, I don't know if I can do this justice, but so it comes from Lefty Driesell. Lefty was the legendary coach at the University of Maryland. And as I mentioned, Moses was very heavily recruited. And he actually committed to attend the University of Maryland. And then he went up there for his freshman year. And right before classes started, the ABA Utah Stars swooped in, threw a bunch of money at him, and he said, okay, I'm going pro. So Lefty told me a story. Moses was very quiet. He was shy. He was self-conscious about his speech impediment. He was, I would say, suspicious of strangers, and he didn't like talking about himself. So the problem is he was the most sought-after high school recruit in years. So all these coaches are coming to Petersburg, Virginia to see him play and to talk to him, to try and sell them on their school, right? But Moses he didn't want to talk. So Lefty told me he was, when he first met Moses, he was trying to, engage him in conversation. So Lefty said, Moses, where do you get to be so good? Like Petersburg there's not much talent here. There's no elite coaching. There's no like AAU scene. Who do you play against that made you this good? Where did you play? So Moses said, the State Pen, man. And Lefty's like, what? Moses used to play at the State Penitentiary in Richmond, Virginia. He would go in, the guards would let him in, and we play pickup ball with the inmates.
At high school?
Yeah, when he was in high school.
Wow.
He was an animal.
Animal. I mean, that's how he got to be such a beast. So Lefty says, oh, and are there any good players in there? And Moses said, yeah, some real good ones, very aggressive. So Lefty says, anybody your size? So Moses says, yeah, guy 6'8". They call him Milkman. Lefty says, why do they call him Milkman? Because he murdered a milkman, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's awesome.
Great story, right? And Lefty,
that was fantastic.
Lefty was like very charismatic guy. He was a legendary storyteller, and so he told a million times better than I just did. But
no, that is fantastic, man. That's great. That's a good story. And which almost you can kind of gather out of the story you were just telling too, kind of gather, like you're saying, like the roughness on the edges around like the media and stuff like that, because he was very matter of fact, said it dead serious. Now he murdered a milkman, man.
I love those kind of people that they have the character of like they're super serious all the time, but they'll say a joke or two without trying to make themselves sounds funny, but then you hear it and you're like, yo, this guy's hilarious.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I remember Rick Barry when I was talking to him about Moses. Rick Barry played his last 2 seasons with Moses in Houston, and I was asked him about Moses' personality. He said Moses is one of those guys that was funny all the time without trying to be.
That's the best.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That is the best, man. I appreciate it too. Do you have any kind of new projects to be writing on? I know this one's just coming out. Have you got any ideas on what's next or anything? Or are you gonna take a little bit of break on something? Or
I'm searching. I don't have anything big. I'm working on some freelance articles here and there, but I don't have a big next book topic. I'm trying to find one. It's hard to come up with that perfect idea,
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
Hey, so I do want to ask you a couple of questions as well, considering you've written some books and into sports writing, and we went to school at the Full Sail University for the Dan Patrick School of Sports Broadcasting. And what, in your opinion, has changed in the writing world of sports writing with the internet, with podcasts and stuff? Do you have a preference on which ones you like or anything, or can you tell what's the difference in them, or what's your thoughts on the new wave of writing?
Oh man, I mean it's constantly evolving, right? I'm just trying to keep up and figure out what the hell's going on. And it's hard, I'm a guy who I really like long form pieces. I grew up back when Sports Illustrated was Sports Illustrated and reading long form articles, and that seems to be a dying breed. And I wonder if the podcast world has gotten so big that I wonder are we moving away from writing completely? Are we just moving to a world where it's all going to be podcasts? And that makes me kind of sad to think about that. I mean, I love podcasts. I listen to plenty of podcasts, but I'd like to think there are room for both, but it's great to see, the wonderful thing about it too, is with podcasts and even writing now, there's the internet in general, more than when I was a kid, there's opportunity for so many people to make their voices heard and to break into the industry in different ways. But it's hard to hold down that kind of steady writing job that was there many years ago.
Yeah, I can vouch for that actually too. And we actually both of us got to, like I was saying before, we went to Full Sail, so we went under Dan Patrick, his school of broadcasting that he went with that, and that's one of the things that he was talking about is how much different it is, and just we graduated about 2 years ago, and just the difference whenever he was coming up in the sports world and what it is now, and just the accessibility you have to either personalities or just people in general with their writing, and it's a different grind now, so it's kind of interesting.
I think a big thing too is, when I was young, so I'm not that old. When I was young.
Come on now.
But 20, 30 years ago, I mean, a big shift is that there was a time, certainly 80s, 90s, maybe the internet, the spread of the internet is the demarcation point, but there was a time when the teams and the players really needed you. right? They really needed you to get
Yeah.
their message out. They needed you to basically serve as public relations for them, to get their image out, to talk about how great they are, and on and on. Now they have so many ways of speaking to the fans and whoever else directly. And so they don't need you as much. And that goes to what you were talking about accessibility. Like, writers don't have the kind of access to these players that they used to, because the teams and the league and the players just don't need to give that access anymore. They could get access to the public in other ways.
Yeah, it's definitely changed now, especially, you're having guys in locker rooms that are even having phones out, and you can almost hear their locker room speech now. Like, that was unheard of, 20 years ago. You never got that kind of access, and everybody wants to be heard now, especially. So sometimes it gets distracting, I think, for some of these athletes as well, that not all the teammates like it. There still are those old school guys that don't. It's a separation, like, we don't want that in here.
Yeah.
To touch up on just that. So, you mentioned that you're like a basketball savant, a basketball historian, right? So I'm pretty sure you know the game in and out. Maybe you have played, when you were little, or when you're in high school, or maybe a little bit of college or something like that. But obviously, not a pro, just like us, not a pro, but, we have some knowledge towards the game, right? Would you think, because there's a lot of conversation on the fact of nowadays, sports broadcasting, they want a lot of analysts to be ex-players. Do you think that the regular average Joe like us can still be analysts in the broadcasting world, or do you think just ex-players are going to be the only ones that are taking over that game?
Oh man, I mean, I think there are average Joe type people who are capable of doing it, but it definitely does seem that we're moving towards that ex-player world, right? And I get that. It's two different skills, though, right? I mean, because you're a great player doesn't mean that you can, that you can be a broadcaster, be an effective broadcaster. And we've certainly seen some who are not very good at all. But
Ryan Hollins.
I'm not gonna call out names, but
I will.
Okay, yeah, but and then there are some that are very good. I don't know, but it's even within that realm, right? Like, it's who gets. I mean, like, to me, like a Tim Legler is a much better broadcaster than I almost vomit when I even say his name, Reggie Miller, for example. But Reggie Miller's Reggie Miller, so he gets more exposure, he gets the better games, whatever. Legler's seems like he's starting to get more games, but I think that too. I think there are. What are you looking for in a broadcaster? There are some former players who are really good at what they do at breaking down the game, but maybe they're not as big a personality, or aren't going to be quite as funny on the broadcast, and so they don't get. I mean, come on, who do you want as a studio analyst, really? Charles Barkley or Tim Legler, for example, right? Or there are I mean, inside the NBA is its own thing, right? But there are guys that are out there that they're just kind of riding on their names.
Yeah, I think two great examples of some people that you may not even realize were either former coaches or any of that other stuff would be Lee Corso, who just retired. A lot of people don't even remember Lee Corso was a legendary coach, and Dick Vitale. Neither one of them won major events, but yet they're so synonymous with their sport, and being with sportscasting and stuff. So it's an interesting point.
I have to go back to Moses here. So
go ahead.
Dickie V, I spoke to Dickie V for the book. Dickie V,
great! How was that?
It was great. Dickie V in 1974 was coaching at the University of Detroit and heavily recruited Moses Malone out of high school, and went and visited him, visited his hometown many years, and he loved Moses, spoke very highly of him. But but people totally forget that he coached at the University of Detroit, did great there, and then he went on to coach the Pistons for a couple of years, and I think he got fired from there. But
his coaching career he was more known for broadcasting for sure. Like, his coaching career, he did a lot of things, but the NBA didn't really work out too well for him, though.
Yeah,
he was better.
You can be a low level coach. You can be a D3 coach, and you can become a great announcer, right? I mean, so I think sometimes they need to focus more on these people's abilities as announcers than on their name brand.
Yeah. I 1,000% agree with you on that one for sure.
Yeah, because I think a lot of ex-players can give their analytical opinion for sure, but it does come with like, they're playing on the court. They might have like, for example, a 3-point specialist, right? A 3-point specialist might just be very well knowledgeable in shooting three, how to get open, how to get off a screen, how to play some sort of defense and stuff like that. And then there could be an average Joe that literally analyzes the game day by day, night by night, looks at clips, looks at former videos, looks at ongoing events at the moment, and they study the players play by play or the coach's schemes and schematics, and they could be a great analyst as well. It's just they're, like you just said, their name brand is
Absolutely.
not there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the one thing that they can offer that you and I can't is being able to reflect on personal experiences, right? So if you're like, take like, I don't know, Richard Jefferson, he can speak to the pressure of what it's like to play in the finals, or how does a team react when it's in the middle of a 5-game losing streak at the NBA level, or what do you do, or what's it like to, I don't know, recover from a major injury as an NBA player? You know what I'm saying. There's certain experiences that they can reflect on that maybe you and I can't. But as far as and that's, and sometimes the booths, they go to 3 people broadcast teams, and maybe that's a situation where you could have an ex-player and maybe a non-ex player who's, and you could get all of that perspective. But there's room for both, and I don't think that if you're a good analyst, if you're a great analyst, whether you played the game or not, there should be room for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got Mr. Paul Knepper with us. Moses Malone, The Life of a Basketball Prophet. You can find it on Amazon. And do you have anything else you wanted to promote or anything out there, Paul?
No, not right now. Going hard with the book right now.
I noticed that you're doing some tours as well. Where are you going to be for some stops?
So right now, so far I have this Friday night. I'm going to be in Houston. It's called Class Bookstore in Houston. It's right near U of H campus. And Tuesday, November 18th, I'm going to be out on Long Island doing a book event out there, and trying to book a couple more. But I'm excited for those.
Nice.
That sounds awesome.